Howdy YouTube, kicking off 2017 by cleaning up this PC workstation. I'm going to use plywood and pocket hole joinery to build a real simple cabinet that'll slip over the PC and hold all that junk that sits around it. Laying out and cutting the bulk pieces for this project is pretty standard stuff. Use a squared so you get nice straight lines, and fence so you get nice repeatable cuts. In fact, it was all going pretty boring right up until this part. I went to cut the top to length, and I didn't use the crosscut sled. Sure enough, when I went to push it through, it separated from the fence. Now, this could have been a kickback, but thankfully I've got one of these micro jig splitters installed, so no harm, no foul. After changing my shorts, I went back to ripping my stock down. This time I dug out the crosscut sled to make sure I got the short pieces cut to length safely. Laying out pocket holes is not strictly speaking necessary unless you have parts that you want to be interchangeable. It is, however, a good idea to mark the fronts on pieces that are supposed to be a mirror image. There's a mark on the Craig jig to set the drill bit depth for 3/4 inch plywood. Now, of course, my plywood's not quite 3/4 of an inch deep, so I set it just a wee bit shallower than that. There are also marks on the jig that you can line up the pencil lines with so that you know you're getting your holes drilled exactly where you want them. Even painted plywood needs a little bit of sanding. If nothing else, it helps to keep the splinters down. I can't stress enough how important it is to plan ahead when you start the assembly of something like this, because as you can see, this apparatus, plus a screw, is pretty big when it comes to getting into corners and cracks and shelves. So I took my drawing and I went through and kind of mentally put this thing together and numbered the pieces on the drawing so that I would know what I have to put together first so that I will always have access to the pocket holes to get the screws in. It's certainly not necessary for this project, but adding a little glue to the joint isn't going to hurt anything. Now, pocket holes can be assembled without clamping things together, but it sure is a lot easier if the pieces hold themselves in place and all you have to worry about is the screw. Of course, it's often the case that getting everything exactly where it's supposed to be with a pocket hole assembly isn't trivial. In this case, I've got to put this shelf in next because otherwise I won't be able to get at the holes on the bottom. But it's important that it is exactly the length of this piece up from the bottom. So what I did is I just spring clamped this divider to the side to give me my measurement down, and now I'm clamping everything else in place so I can put the pocket screw in and be sure that this shelf isn't going to move. For the two small shelves, a couple of spacer blocks are the easiest way to do this. Well, even with all of my prior planning, there wasn't a good way to get these last screws in here with the driver because it's frankly just too long, even with the shortest bit I have on it. So out comes the hand screwdriver, but I'm only going to drive these in kind of most of the way by hand. Once I get them in a 1/2 or 3/4 of an inch, then I can get the drill in there and I'll set them with the clutch. That way I know they're all the same and correct. Fair warning to you all, Murphy of Murphy's Law fame likes entropy, so he will strike and strike hard at almost any organization project. This is me finding out that the bearing is seized on my flush trim bit. Luckily, my rabbiting bit set is made by the same manufacturer as my flush trim bit, so I was able to thieve a bearing out of there, and an Allen wrench, and a couple of minutes later, I was back in the flush trim business. If I'd had any qualms over the decision to paint this project, they were officially gone at this point. Every exposed edge of this project got the 1/4 inch round over treatment. This goes a long way to helping keep the veneer from tearing off and makes the whole thing just more comfortable to deal with. The edges also get a skim coat of some filler. This takes care of any holes that are in there and gives a much cleaner edge when painted. Officially, it is too cold to paint in my shop right now, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm only going to put on the one coat, and I'm going to make it nice and thin and give it lots and lots of time to dry. I'll come back and fix it up right in the spring when it's a little bit warmer. Time for the mess to go. You don't realize how much crap and dirt you've accumulated until you actually go to clean it up. This was a great opportunity to vacuum out the computer. The shelves are a perfect fit right over it. Now this computer vents in the front and out the back, so this arrangement is fine. If you're going to try it with your PC, check where those fans are first. Okay, this is clearly not the most complicated project I've done. In fact, the goal was quite the opposite. This was just something I needed, but it's out here in the office. I'm the only one who's ever going to see it. So fast was more important than pretty. It needs another coat of paint, but that's going to wait until the weather warms up. I'm not going to fight with the spray paint when it's 5 degrees in the shop. I also know that there are some die-hard pocket hole haters out there in the interwebs. In fact, some folks probably just turned this video off as soon as they saw the Craig jig sitting on the bench. But I figure they're like anything else, time and place. My priorities for this project were quick because 5 degrees in the shop, and that it come out square because I needed the shelves to fit the things I built them for. It's a painted project. Once I get that second layer of black on there in the spring, you're not going to be able to tell whether these joints are put together with rabbets, dados, screws, and glue. They're going to be covered up by the paint. So the aesthetic is really kind of a non-issue. And as for strength, well, the plywood that the shelves are made out of weighs about 3 times as much as the equipment that's sitting on it. Plus, I added glue along with the screws. That thing's not going anywhere. The other serious upside to pocket hole joinery for a lot of you out there is that it just doesn't require a whole bunch of big tools. The reality is you can build basic cabinetry like this with a circular saw, some kind of a straight edge, a drill, and the pocket hole jig. That's all you need. If you shop around really carefully, 100, maybe 150 bucks if you want to get some nicer stuff, and you can be making things like this out of plywood. You're not going to win any design awards with plywood, pocket holes, and paint, but you can get yourself organized, and in the immortal words of Alton Brown, organization will set you free. I got to get back to editing this video so that you can watch it. In the meantime, you get out in your shop and make something. Don't let tooling or temperature stop you from doing things that will make your life better. If you have any questions or comments about the process, leave them down below. While you're there, think about hitting that subscribe button. But above all, YouTube, stay safe.